Hello and welcome back to Her Revenge Arc. My name is Evelyn and tonight I want to share a story with you. It's a story about the sanctity of a moment, about the subtle, venomous ways jealousy can manifest, and about how sometimes, the quietest actions can create the loudest truths. This isn't a story told in the heat of anger. That has long since cooled. This is a recollection, a dissection of a memory that I have turned over in my mind 1,000 times. It's about the day I was meant to feel my most beautiful and my most loved, and how one person tried to turn it to ash. So, pour yourself something warm, settle in, and let me tell you about my wedding day. My relationship with Liam was the kind that felt less like a whirlwind romance and more like coming home. We met in a dusty, forgotten corner of a university library, both reaching for the same obscure book on architectural history. Our hands brushed, a cliché so perfect it felt scripted, and from that moment, a quiet understanding bloomed between us. Liam was calm, steady, and possessed a kindness that radiated from him like warmth from a hearth. He saw the world not as it was, but as it could be, full of potential and beauty. And he truly saw me in a way no one ever had before. His family for the most part was just as wonderful. His parents, David and Eleanor, were warm and welcoming, embracing me with an openness that soothed the anxieties of a girl who had always felt a little on the outside looking in. And then there was Clara, Liam's sister. From our very first meeting, I felt a dissonance with Clara. On the surface, she was polished, charming, and effusively sweet. She would hug me tightly, call me the sister she never had, and praise my every small accomplishment to her parents. But her eyes told a different story. When she thought no one was looking, her smile would drop, replaced by a cool, assessing gaze. There was a tightness around her mouth, a flicker of something sharp and possessive whenever Liam would take my hand or wrap an arm around my waist. She was the golden child, the beloved daughter, and I was the interloper who had stolen her brother, her confidant, her staunchest ally. I understood, on some level, the fear of being replaced. But with Clara, it felt less like fear and more like a simmering territorial rage disguised under layers of Chanel perfume and practiced smiles. Liam was not blind to it. Clara's always been intense, he would say, a line of concern creasing his brow. She loves me fiercely and she's protective. She just needs time to see that you're not taking me away. You're adding to our family. I wanted to believe him. I truly did. So I played my part. I complimented her, asked for her advice, and endured the subtle barbs she would weave into her conversations. Barbs so skillfully delivered that to react would have made me look hypersensitive and paranoid. When Liam proposed on a rainy Tuesday evening in our small apartment, surrounded by takeout boxes and the comfortable chaos of our life together, it was the easiest yes I had ever given. The joy was pure, untainted, for a while. Then came the wedding planning, and with it Clara's full, undivided, and increasingly suffocating attention. She insisted on being my maid of honor. It was, she declared in front of her entire family, her sacred duty. To refuse would have caused a rift I wasn't prepared to navigate. So I agreed, a knot of apprehension tightening in my stomach. The first major battle was, perhaps predictably, the wedding dress. My vision for my dress was clear. I wanted something timeless, elegant and understated. I pictured delicate lace sleeves, a classic A-line silhouette, and a row of tiny satin-covered buttons down the back. It was a dress that whispered, it didn't shout. It was a dress that felt like me. Clara's vision was different. She steered me towards gowns that were ostentatious and loud, covered in sequins and crystals, with plunging necklines and dramatic, voluminous skirts. You need to make a statement, Evie, she'd trill, holding up a monstrosity that looked like a disco ball had exploded. This is your one day to be a princess. Don't you want to sparkle? Each time I gently demurred, pointing to a simpler design, she would sigh with theatrical disappointment. Oh, that's sweet. Very modest. But don't you think it's a bit plain? It doesn't really have that wow factor. You have a good figure. You should show it off, not hide it under all that fabric. The passive aggression was a masterclass. She wasn't insulting me directly. She was insulting my taste, framing it as a gentle, sisterly concern for my own good. My own mother and my best friend Sarah, who was a bridesmaid, would exchange tense looks over Clara's head. They saw it, but they were also caught in the delicate web of family politics. Finally, at a small independent boutique I had found on my own, I saw it. It was hanging in the corner, almost shyly. It was everything I had imagined. The lace on the sleeves was the pattern of intertwined ivy leaves. The silk of the skirt flowed like liquid moonlight, and the buttons down the back were as delicate as pearls. When I put it on, it felt like a second skin. Felt like my future. Tears welled in my eyes, and when I stepped out of the dressing room, I saw the look on my mother's face and on Sarah's. It was a look of pure, unadulterated joy for me. Liam's mother, Eleanor, clapped her hands together. Oh, Evelyn, it's exquisite. You look like a dream. I turned to the mirror, my heart soaring. This was it. This was the one. And then Clara's voice cut through the magic. It's nice, she said, her tone flat. I met her eyes in the reflection. Her smile was a thin, tight line. It's just, are you sure about the color? It's a very bright white. It can be a bit unforgiving on some skin tones. And the lace on the arms, it's a little dated, isn't it? A bit grandmother's curtains. The air in the room went cold. My mother's smile faltered. Sarah's jaw tightened. But Clara just shrugged, feigning innocence. I'm just being honest. That's what a maid of honor is for, right? To give the honest truth so the bride looks her absolute best. The truth was a poisoned dart, aimed to deflate my happiness, to plant a seed of doubt. For a moment I felt a flash of white-hot anger. I wanted to tell her that her opinion was neither wanted nor valued. I wanted to point out the jealousy that was so plain on her face. But I didn't. I looked at my reflection at the dress that felt so right, and I took a deep, steadying breath. Thank you for your honesty, Clara, I said, my voice calm and even. But I love it. This is my dress. Her mask of concern flickered, and for a split second, I saw a flash of raw frustration in her eyes. It was the look of a manipulator whose strings had just gone slack. She recovered quickly, forcing a bright smile. Of course. If you love it, that's all that matters. I just want you to be happy. But I had seen it, and I filed it away. The months leading up to the wedding were a gauntlet of 1,000 similar microaggressions. Clara accidentally ordered the wrong color swatch for the bridesmaids' dresses. She forgot to include my favorite song on the playlist suggestions for the DJ. She made endless backhanded compliments that were designed to chip away at my confidence. I'm so impressed with how you're handling all this stress, Evie. I would be a wreck if my floral arrangements were so rustic. Or, it's so brave of you to go with a caterer that's so experimental. With each incident, Liam grew more and more frustrated with his sister. We had several quiet, tense conversations. He would apologize for her, promising to talk to her, and he did. But Clara was an expert at twisting the narrative. She would cry, accuse him of choosing me over her, and claim she was only trying to help, that I was misinterpreting her intentions. It was exhausting for him and for me. I eventually told him to let it go. I could handle Clara. I was an adult and I wouldn't let her spoil this. I believed I had it under control. I was wrong. The wedding day arrived, a perfect sun-drenched day in late September. The air was crisp, and the leaves were just beginning to turn to gold and crimson. A sense of surreal peace settled over me as I sat in the bridal suite with my mother and Sarah. My hair was swept up in a soft chignon, my makeup was flawless, and hanging in the corner, encased in a protective garment bag, was my dress. My beautiful, perfect dress. We were laughing, sipping champagne, sharing stories. It was exactly as it should be. The photographer was capturing candid moments, and my friend Sarah, an aspiring filmmaker, was taking little snippets of video on her phone for a personal wedding movie she was making for us as a gift. It was a bubble of pure, unadulterated happiness. Then Clara knocked and entered. She was already in her deep emerald bridesmaid dress, looking stunning as always. She carried 2 glasses of red wine. A special toast, she announced, her voice a little too loud, a little too bright. Just for the bride and her maid of honor. To a new sister and a lifetime of happiness. My mother gave me a look that said, just humor her. Sarah lowered her phone slightly but kept it recording, wanting to capture the toast. I smiled and accepted the glass. The suite was spacious, but Clara positioned herself unnecessarily close to me, standing right beside the chair where I sat. I just want you to know, she began, her voice taking on a syrupy, sentimental tone, that I am so happy for you and Liam. Seeing my brother so in love, it's all I've ever wanted for him. I murmured my thanks, feeling a familiar sense of unease. Her performance was, as always, flawless. She raised her glass higher. To Evelyn and Liam. And then it happened. As she brought her glass back down, she seemed to trip over nothing, her body lurching forward. It was a clumsy, theatrical movement that didn't look real. Her arm flew out, and the entire glass of dark, blood-red wine arched through the air. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the spray of crimson droplets. I saw the horrified, yet strangely triumphant look that flashed in her eyes for a microsecond before she replaced it with a mask of shock. And I saw the wine hit its target. Not me. Not the carpet. It splashed directly onto the front of my wedding dress, which was hanging on the back of the door. A huge spiderwebbing stain of deep burgundy bloomed across the pristine white silk of the bodice. It seeped into the delicate lace, staining the ivy leaves a sickening mottled purple. It dripped down the skirt in long, ugly rivulets. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the sound of the wine dripping onto the floor. Then a cacophony. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Sarah let out a string of curses, and Clara began to wail. Oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm so clumsy. I tripped. Evelyn, I've ruined it. I've ruined your dress. I am so sorry. She was crying, real tears streaming down her face, but her eyes, when they met mine for a fleeting second, were not filled with remorse. They were filled with a chilling, victorious gleam. She had done it. After all the little nicks and cuts, she had finally landed a devastating blow. She had marked my day, stained it with her jealousy in the most literal way possible. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange and profound calm washed over me. It was the kind of clarity that comes only in the face of absolute disaster. I looked at the ruined dress, then at the sobbing Clara, being comforted by my stunned mother. And I knew, with a certainty that was as solid and real as the floor beneath my feet, I knew that this was no accident. My mind replayed the moment, the non-existent trip, the precise, targeted trajectory of the wine, the flicker of triumph in her eyes. It all clicked into place. Sarah rushed over to me. "Evie, are you okay? We can fix this. We can try soda water, salt." I just shook my head, my eyes still locked on the stain. "It's not coming out, Sarah," I said, my voice barely a whisper. All the warmth had drained from my body, replaced by ice. Clara continued her performance. "I'll pay for it. I'll buy you a new one. Oh, what have I done? Your wedding is in 2 hours." My mother, bless her heart, was trying to be practical. "Maybe we can hide it with the bouquet? Or pin a part of the skirt over it." But the damage was too central, too catastrophic. The dress was ruined. The symbol of the day, the thing I had felt so beautiful in, was destroyed. And the person who had done it was standing right there, feigning devastation. It was in that moment, standing amidst the wreckage of her making, that something inside me shifted. The part of me that had been making excuses for her, the part that had been trying to keep the peace, simply vanished. It was burned away by the cold, hard certainty of her malice. Revenge wasn't my first thought. My first thought was survival. I would not let her win. I would not let this ruin my wedding to Liam. I would walk down that aisle, and I would marry the man I loved. But as I looked at her, dabbing at her crocodile tears, a second thought began to form. A cold, quiet, and razor-sharp thought. "You will not get away with this." I turned to Sarah, whose face was a mask of fury on my behalf. I motioned for her to come closer, away from Clara and my mother. "Your phone," I whispered, my voice urgent. "Were you still recording?" Sarah's eyes widened in comprehension. She glanced down at the phone still clutched in her hand. The red recording light was still blinking. She had captured everything. The toast. The trip. The splash. She looked back at me, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across her face. "Every single second," she breathed. A plan began to form in my mind, not born of frantic anger, but of a cold, calculated precision. Clara wanted to make a statement on my wedding day. Fine. So would I. "Send it to me," I whispered. "And then help me figure out what the hell I'm going to wear." The next hour and a half was a blur of controlled chaos. Sarah, my rock, immediately took charge. While my mother tried desperately and fruitlessly to blot the stain, Sarah was on the phone, calling a local high-end boutique that did emergency alterations. She was a force of nature, her voice sharp and commanding. Meanwhile, I had to face Clara. I walked over to her, my face a carefully composed mask of resignation. "Clara," I said, my voice gentle. "It was an accident. Please stop crying. We'll figure something out. I don't want you to be upset." This was the most crucial part of the act. I needed her to believe she had gotten away with it. I needed her to be comfortable and smug. Her tears subsided almost instantly, replaced by a look of profound, albeit fake relief. "Oh, Evie, you are a saint," she breathed, clutching my hands. Her skin was cool. I was so horrified. "I would never forgive myself if I ruined your day." "You haven't ruined it," I lied, looking her directly in the eye. "It's just a dress. What matters is that I'm marrying Liam." Her smile was dazzling. She believed me. She thought I was a pushover, a forgiving fool who would swallow her story whole. That was her mistake. She had underestimated me for the last time. While Sarah worked her magic on the phone, securing a sample dress from the boutique and a seamstress who would meet us there, I sat down and messaged the wedding coordinator and the DJ from my own phone. My instructions were simple and precise. I explained that I wanted to add a small video presentation to my reception speech and attached the file Sarah had sent me. I told them exactly when and how I wanted it played. No questions, just execution. It was a risk, but my coordinator, a wonderfully efficient woman named Maria, simply replied, "Consider it done." Then came the new dress. Sarah and I raced to the boutique. It wasn't my dream dress. It was an ivory sheath, simple and modern. It was beautiful, but it wasn't mine. The seamstress worked miracles, pinning and tucking until it fit me perfectly. As I stood in front of the mirror, I didn't see the bride I had envisioned for months. I saw a woman who was resilient, a woman who was about to marry the love of her life, and a woman who was about to serve justice, cold and irrefutable. When I returned to the venue just minutes before I was due to walk down the aisle, Liam was waiting for me outside the bridal suite, his face etched with worry. He had been told there was a dress mishap. He saw me in the new dress and his eyes softened. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Whatever happened, you're here, and you look perfect. I took his hands. Liam, before we do this, I need to tell you what happened. And I need you to trust me. Completely. Quietly and quickly, I told him everything. I told him about the wine, the trip, and what I was certain was Clara's true intention. I saw his expression shift from concern to a deep, sorrowful anger. He knew his sister. He knew I was telling the truth. I am so sorry, Evie, he whispered, his grip on my hands tightening. I should have done more. I should have stopped her. It's not your fault, I said firmly. But I am going to handle it. Tonight, at the reception. I need you to support me, no matter how shocked people are. I told him about the video. He looked at me, a long searching look. Then he nodded, a grim determination setting in his jaw. I'm with you, he said. 100%. She has to be held accountable. Walking down the aisle on my father's arm, all the chaos of the morning melted away. All I could see was Liam, waiting for me at the altar, his eyes full of love and unwavering support. The ceremony was beautiful. We said our vows, our voices steady, our promises echoing in the sunlit hall. In that moment, Clara and her petty cruelty ceased to exist. It was just us. The reception began joyfully. The new dress was a topic of conversation, and the official story, concocted by Sarah, was that there had been a zipper malfunction on the original dress at the last minute. Clara played her part beautifully, expressing her relief that everything had worked out. She mingled, she laughed, she accepted compliments on her stunning bridesmaid dress. She was the picture of a loving sister, basking in the glow of the happy day. She had no idea what was coming. After the main course, the speeches began. My father gave a tearful, heartfelt speech. Liam's best man told a few embarrassing but funny stories. Then it was Eleanor's turn. She spoke of her love for her son and welcomed me to the family with genuine warmth. Throughout her speech, she kept glancing at Clara, smiling, speaking of her two wonderful children. Clara preened under the attention. Finally, Maria, the coordinator, handed me the microphone. And now, a few words from our beautiful bride, Evelyn. A hush fell over the room. I stood up, Liam's hand finding mine under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. I smiled, a calm, serene smile that I had been practicing all afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here to celebrate with us. I began, my voice clear and steady. It means the world to Liam and me to have you all here. Looking out at your faces, I am just filled with so much love and gratitude. I spoke about my parents, about my wonderful new in-laws, David and Eleanor, and their incredible kindness. I spoke about my bridesmaids, especially my dear friend Sarah, who was more of a sister to me than anyone. And then I turned my attention to Clara. And of course, I said, my eyes finding hers across the room, I have to give a special thank you to my maid of honor, my new sister Clara. Clara beamed, lifting her champagne glass in a small salute. She thought this was her moment of praise. Clara has been so involved in this wedding from the very beginning, I continued, letting the word involved hang in the air for a moment. She has put so much thought and effort into making this day memorable. In fact, she gave me a gift earlier today that was so memorable, I felt I had to share it with all of you. A flicker of confusion crossed Clara's face. The smile became a little more fixed. You see, I said, my voice dropping slightly, becoming more intimate, more conspiratorial. A wedding day is about truth. It's about two people standing up in front of everyone they love and speaking their truth, making a promise. And I believe that spirit of truth should extend to the whole day.
No secrets, no pretense.
Just honesty. I paused, taking a sip of water. The room was silent, utterly captivated. Before the ceremony, Clara came to the bridal suite for a special toast. She wanted to wish me well. My friend Sarah, who you all know is a budding filmmaker, happened to be capturing some behind-the-scenes moments for us. It was such a touching, sisterly moment, and I think it perfectly captures the unique dynamic of our relationship. I'd like to share it with you now. I nodded to the DJ, who was poised and ready. Clara's face went pale. The smile was gone, replaced by a dawning horror. Her eyes darted around the room, as if looking for an escape. Her parents looked confused, glancing between me and their daughter. Then, the large projector screen behind the head table, which had been displaying a photo montage of me and Liam, went dark. A moment later, it flickered to life. The video started. The sound was crystal clear. The view was from the side, capturing both me in my chair and Clara standing beside me. It showed Clara, her face a mask of saccharine sweetness, holding the two glasses of red wine. The room watched, silent and transfixed, as the scene played out. They heard her cloying words. To a new sister and a lifetime of happiness. They heard her sentimental speech about being so happy for me and Liam. And then they saw it. They saw her theatrical, unbelievable trip, on a perfectly flat floor. They saw the deliberate way her arm extended, not flailing but aiming. They saw the red wine fly through the air in a perfect damning arc. They saw it splash all over the bodice of my beautiful original wedding dress. And most importantly, because of the angle Sarah had captured, the camera caught what I had only seen for a split second in person. For a moment after the wine hit, before the fake crying started, Clara's face was not one of shock. It was a mask of pure, unadulterated, triumphant satisfaction. Her lips were curled into a small, cruel smirk. It was the face of someone who had just won. The video ended there. The screen went black. The silence in the reception hall was so profound it felt like a physical weight. You could have heard a pin drop. No one moved. No one breathed. They had all seen it. There was no ambiguity. No room for excuses. It was a clear, undeniable, and malicious act of sabotage. I turned my gaze back to Clara. All the color had drained from her face. She looked like a statue frozen in her chair. Her mouth was slightly open, her eyes wide with sheer unadulterated panic. She was exposed. The carefully constructed facade of the sweet, loving sister had been utterly and completely demolished in front of everyone she knew. Her parents, David and Eleanor, were staring at the blank screen, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. Eleanor slowly turned to look at her daughter, her face pale. David had his jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle jumping. Slowly, I raised the microphone back to my lips. My voice was no longer warm. It was as cold and sharp as ice. "So I would like to propose a new toast," I said, my eyes never leaving Clara's. "To my sister-in-law, Clara. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for showing everyone so clearly your true colors. And thank you for ruining my dress because it forced me to realize that some stains you don't even try to wash out. You just cut them away entirely." I raised my glass. "To honesty." Liam stood up beside me, raised his own glass, and looked directly at his sister. He didn't have to say a word. His expression of profound disappointment and anger was enough. The spell was broken. A wave of murmurs and gasps swept through the room. Clara finally moved. She pushed her chair back violently and fled, running out of the reception hall, her sobs now real, desperate, and humiliated. Her parents sat frozen for another moment. Then David stood and followed her out, his face like thunder. Eleanor just sat there looking at me, tears welling in her eyes. It wasn't anger in her gaze, but a deep, heartbreaking shame. The rest of the night was strange. Some guests left, uncomfortable with the family drama. But most stayed. They came up to me and Liam one by one. They didn't offer pity. They offered respect. They told me I was strong, that I had done the right thing. My own family and friends circled around me, a protective barrier of love and support. The party continued, but with a different energy. It was more real somehow. The trivialities had been stripped away, leaving only the core of what mattered. The love between me and Liam, and the support of the people who truly cared for us. We cut ties with Clara completely after that day. Liam was firm. He told his parents that he needed space from her, and that as long as they enabled or excused her behavior, he would need space from them too. It was a long and painful process, but eventually, his parents came to understand the depth of her toxicity. Their relationship with their daughter is strained to this day. Liam and I built our life, a life of peace, trust, and genuine affection, far from the poison of her jealousy. I never regretted what I did. My revenge wasn't loud or violent. It was quiet. It was precise. It was simply the truth, presented without commentary. I didn't have to call her names or accuse her of anything. I just let her own actions speak for themselves. And their verdict was damning. She had tried to ruin my wedding day, but in the end the only thing she truly ruined was her own reputation, her own relationships, her own life. The stain she had tried to put on me, she ended up wearing herself for everyone to see. Sometimes the most satisfying victory is not about shouting your truth from the rooftops, but about creating a space so silent that the lies have no choice but to collapse under their own weight. So I leave you with this question. Have you ever had a moment where someone tried to deliberately sabotage your happiness, and how did you reclaim your power? Share your stories in the comments below. I read everyone. Thank you for listening to her revenge arc. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of justice served. Until next time.